My guest today, Rob Dapkowitz, Vice President of Civilian Public Sector AT&T. Rob, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
My other guest is Don Parenti, Assistant Vice President, Engineering and Architecture for Public Sector AT&T. Don, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thank you.
Don, the technology behind this idea of IoT, it's not new per se. Like, NOAA and other agencies have had sensors on buoys in the middle of the ocean for years and years and years. What's different now? What about the technology, or what about the use of that data is different today?
NOAA has been probably one of the biggest IoT networks in the world for years. I think the difference is how the data is collected. So the world's converging on the Internet protocol, and we sometimes call IP. And Internet protocol doesn't necessarily mean the Internet. And Internet of Things is one of those terms that we can have an intranet of things and an extranet of things. Things don't have to be out there on the Internet itself. But when you start coming up with a commonality where everything's connected by way of the Internet protocol, by way of IP, you can now have that one common network that could handle a whole variety of devices, whether it's a device in a fleet or a temperature sensor or a wind sensor. It doesn't really matter. You bring it all back to one common network. In the past, those technologies were built for very specific network technologies, and an agency would have ended up running 5, 6, 7 different networks depending on the mission set, where now I think there's the opportunity to deploy one, again, highly available IP network and plug anything you need into it, whatever the mission might need. And
I want to go back to that NOAA example, because it is tremendous what NOAA has done with deploying sensors, whether that's in the ocean or in the rivers, streams, etc. But what's I think is changing, Jason, is those sensors are basically wired today with legacy technology. They're tethered to a wired network. And I think when you think about the progress that is being made in 4G, LTE, 5G technologies, it's opened up the opportunity for those devices, those sensors, to convert from wired to wireless. And sometimes if it's far enough out in the ocean, it would be connected via satellite. No matter what technology, wired, wireless, satellite, etc., that's all going to be able to port back to an IP network that's highly secure, that'll be able to transmit that data almost instantaneously across that.
These sensors now are little computers. So think about in the past, you deploy the temperature sensor, you put an analog connection to it, and you live with it, where think about your experience with your smartphones today. There might be a time you say, hey, I need to upgrade the firmware on that thing. Maybe I want to collect different information than I did before. Now it's software push. You push the upgrades right out to it, and now that sensor is doing more than it was before without rolling a truck, without actually doing a replacement, right?
And you know what, Jason, I'd say one other thing is, if there's a message that I would leave, the listeners, if you will, is the sky's the limit. If you have an idea, if you have a legacy process of any kind, I'd say bring that to us and let us bring it into our foundry, where we got some really, really smart people who actually think about how we can turn that legacy process into a more productive, efficient process using our technology, and mobility is a key catalyst to that.